Good afternoon, delegates. Please have your seats so that we can start the final plenary. Delegates, we are close to the end of the meeting, and the first part of the plenary we devote to the reporting back on the progress of the various groups and to conclude on the unfinished business of the plenary. So first, I will give the floor to one of the co-chairs from the contact group on atmospheric monitoring. Who would like to take the floor? Alexandra from Italy or Liana from Armenia? I see Liana is getting ready. Liana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Well, we do have good news to share that we have significantly advanced through the operational paragraphs, and even we managed to clean up certain square brackets. But still, allocated time was not enough for us to consider to go throughout the whole text of operational paragraphs and to address the preambular part. So we are ready to continue the work in the contact group at the in Bangkok in October, or I think it shall be October, end of October, not early November. Thank you.
Thank you for the report from the group, and we will forward the CRP to the 36th MOP, and with this we will close this agenda item for this meeting. And now I would like to give the floor to contact group on MDIs. Henry from Switzerland or Idris from Nigeria? Henry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. The contact group on medical dose inhalers met today for a second time. After clarifying further questions from the room, the group was ready to take a look at the text. In this process, one party put forward alternative text, which the room considered useful to be discussed. The proponent of the original CRP text demonstrated his flexibility and agreed to start discussing this alternative text, while the operative paragraphs from the original text were bracketed for the time being. At the end of the session, the group achieved to agree on one of the alternative paragraphs with one expression remaining in brackets. For two further alternative paragraphs, there was not sufficient time to take a look at, and the group bracketed them for the time being. You can find the result of our discussions so far posted on the portal under the section of the contact group on medical dose inhalers. In the opinion of the co-conveners, my colleague Idris and myself, parties made very good progress, showing flexibility and compromise to come closer to an agreement. Therefore, the co-conveners would recommend parties to continue the conversation in this contact group during the MOP. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, and we will forward the CRP to the MOP. And with this, we will close this agenda item as well for this meeting. And next, I would like to give the floor to contact group on strengthening MP. And Sontal from Barbados.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good afternoon to everyone. The contact group on the draft decision on further strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions, next steps, submitted by the EU, had its third meeting for 1 hour this afternoon. While the entire CRP remained in brackets, we had some very thoughtful, focused, and frank discussions on operative paragraphs 2 and 3, as well as had some suggested text added to the draft CRP. During the discussions, the proponents updated that they heard the concerns of parties, noted they have received good feedback, and that they would update the document being mindful to take the concerns expressed into consideration. We were unable to complete our work, unfortunately, but parties were open to further deliberations. The proponents expressed that they hope to present an updated CRP at the upcoming meeting of the parties. Ultimately, there was agreement that this is a discussion that could continue during the meeting of the parties. On behalf of my co-chair, Yana, and myself, I wish to thank all delegations for their constructive contributions to the discussions in the contact group, and to thank them for allowing us the opportunity to serve as co-chairs. Thank you, co-facilitators.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, and we will forward this CRP as well to the MOP, and we'll close the agenda item for this meeting. And now I will give the floor to one of the co-chairs of the informal group on HFC 23, Form 3. Martin from Netherlands and Obed from South Africa. Obed? Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. The informal group met just this afternoon for a second meeting. Some parties were able to have bilaterals between the meeting we had last night and this afternoon, and also had an opportunity to consult with the Secretariat on the options and the best forms to be able to look into. During our meeting this afternoon, there were continued exchanges between parties with regards to the options that were presented by the Secretariat and options that parties were suggesting that the issues of destruction of HFC 23 can be looked into. There are some further challenges that have been identified on the reporting forms, Form 3, 4, and 6. With regards to the way forward, one party has volunteered that they will draft a paper on the most appropriate options for discussion that will be facilitated at the next MOP in Bangkok. So that's the way forward from that informal group, Madam Co-Chair, that we will continue the discussion considering the paper that will be drafted by one party. So with that, I would like to thank all the parties that came into the discussions on behalf of myself and Martin for your good cooperation, and we look forward to working with yourselves again at the MOP in Bangkok. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the report from this group. So we will wait for this document to be submitted to the Ozone Secretariat before the MOP for consideration. And with that, I will give the floor to my co-chair, Ralph.
Thank you, Mirusa. And I would like to go to the next contact group on unwanted equipment. Moran and Linda. So, and Moran from France is asking for the floor, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Co-Président. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The contact group met for the second time this afternoon to pursue discussions on the CRP on unwanted imports of energy inefficient products and equipment. The group made progress in reviewing the CRP, and parties contributed to the heading and were able to lift brackets, but the paper was not completed in the time allotted. And so on behalf of myself and my Co-Chair, we would like the CRP to be submitted to the meeting of the parties for a continuation of the discussions. I'd like to thank everyone who participated and helped us further the discussions. I also thank the co-chairs for having appointed us as facilitators for this contact group. Thank you.
Thank you for this good progress you mentioned, and I would like to thank you and Linda for your good work in the group. And then the CRP can be forwarded to the MOP, and we close this agenda item. Then we go to the contact group on compliance deferral, and I would like to ask the conveners, Cornelius or Anna Maria. I think Cornelius will report back. So Cornelius, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The contact group on the draft decision on possible compliance deferral for Article 5 Group 2 parties met for the second time today. Intersessionally, the proponents met with a team to discuss certain open questions that occurred and appeared yesterday. 2 meetings of that kind took place prior to the meeting of the contact group. After clarifying some conceptual issues concerning the feasibility of information requests, which are at the core of the content, were clarified, and the contact group started to work on the text, in particular also in relation to the framing and the timing of the different informations requested by TEEP. These discussions were very productive and but could not lead to a final conclusion on this issue. Therefore, parties wish to continue this discussion at the meeting of the parties and would request to close the agenda item for this meeting and to continue the discussion later on. Also on behalf of Anna Marie, Mia, I would like to thank all participants for the constructive attitude and in particular to thank TEEP for their preparedness to answer and to engage in very fruitful discussions with the proponents. Thank you.
Thank you for this report back, and I would like to thank you and Anna Maria for their good work in the group. And this will be forwarded also to the MOP. So then we can close this agenda item as well. Then we had all the reports back from the contact groups and the informal group. And I would like then to hop to agenda item 6B, energy efficiency. And there is a CRP posted, and that's from Micronesia and Grenada. And I think Micronesia or Grenada, one of you should introduce it, so I'm not sure who will do that. Grenada, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to apologize to this body for coming in that late with this CRP. We know we are on the very home straight of this meeting, but we still felt it was absolutely necessary to get this input in as we close this meeting. So posted on the conference portal is CRP 10, which essentially reflects some of the views that were expressed when this item was introduced in the plenary earlier on in the meeting. So its caption is a CRP on strengthening the enabling environments to enhance energy efficiency in the cooling sector while implementing the Kigali Amendment. And it basically highlights a lot of the concerns that were raised by parties in the plenary. So there is some preambular text that basically sets the tone for the operative text of the CRP, but essentially the draft CRP that is before us examines carefully the enabling environment and support that is required for national ozone units to strengthen their capacity and also for implementing agencies' capacities to be strengthened. It also addresses the upcoming discussions that would ensue at the Executive Committee so that additional support on energy efficiency can be provided, and the unique circumstances and challenges of LVCs and VLVCs will be taken into consideration when these discussions are being held. And then it looks at also utilizing the increased funding that has been provided to the implementing agencies to provide additional support in terms of project preparation and implementation with matters related to energy efficiency while phasing down these HFCs. And also to further encourage the TEEP and to complement the good work that the TEEP has been doing and to urge them to continue updating the reports in the future, but at the same time taking into consideration the unique circumstances and special challenges that LVCs and VLVCs are currently facing. So these are essentially the elements of the CRP. We know that there would not be any time for its discussion here, but we will look to enhance it further as we move forward to the MOP later on this year. And we were hoping that we will have the correct environment where we can fully discuss this particular draft decision. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I would also like to request that my colleague from Micronesia be afforded the opportunity to further add her voice to this CRP with respect to its presentation in this plenary. Thank you so much.
Thank you for introducing the CRP, and indeed, now I would like to give the floor to Micronesia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. We are very pleased to join forces with the distinguished delegation of Grenada to submit this draft decision for the consideration of the parties. Mr. Co-Chair, good progress has been made over the past years on building greater understanding and capacity to address energy efficiency in the context of the HFC phase down. We are pleased with the progress, and yet we are also aware that much work still remains to address many of the challenges and to make the most of the opportunities that, if attained, will make an enormous contribution to addressing climate change, while at the same time supporting energy security, food security, and access to cooling. We have worked throughout the week to identify a selection of next steps that will help move us another step forward. We are very grateful for the time and valuable contributions of our sisters and brothers from the Caribbean and Pacific Islands to the work reflected here. We look forward to working collaboratively with parties on these ideas at the meeting of the parties in Bangkok. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. And then I would like to ask for reactions from the floor. And I look if there are reactions on this CRP. See Barbados, please, Barbados.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I would first like to thank the proponents of the CRP, the distinguished delegations of Grenada and the Federated States of Micronesia. And just to reiterate that I do agree that the elements of the CRP as proposed do highlight some of the concerns that were already shared in the plenary. And so I would look forward to being able to discuss this document at an appropriate time and venue at the upcoming meeting of the parties. At this time, Co-Chair, I know we are pressed for time, but as I would have indicated to the co-chairs earlier in the week, when we were discussing agenda item 6, particularly slide 36, when the TEEP was making their presentation in relation to the progress report, in trying to adhere to the rules in relation to only asking questions, I missed the window of opportunity to make this comment, and it is specifically related to the comment made by the TEEP, or the request made for consideration of travel arrangements or expenses for TEEP and TALK members. I know that this august body would recognize the commitment that the TEEP members make to this body, their contributions, often at possibly personal expense. As Article 5 parties, we are thankful for the ability to be able to participate in this meeting through funding, but we also know that it comes at an expense to us as well. So if we can do anything to support TEEP members in their requests for assistance, whether they be Article 5 or not, it would be greatly appreciated. We've lost experts already because of the funding issues, and I think that if they've raised an issue and we do not look to address it, it could be more costly for us later on in terms of attracting new members. So I would beg us to look into and consider their requests for travel expenses at an appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a little bit, let's say, not directly linked to this energy efficiency, as I understood, but there's support for the CRP 10 as presented. I have Senegal and United States on my list. Senegal?
Co-chair, the delegation of Senegal support this CRP to be discussed in the next meeting in Bangkok, and we would like to thank Grenada and Federated States of Micronesia for submitting this CRP. Thank you very much.
Then the next speaker on my list is the US. If there's others who would like to speak, please indicate it. The United States.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Let us start by thanking Grenada and the Federated States of Micronesia for putting this forward. Certainly appreciate the thought and attention that they have put into this proposal. On what is an important issue. I think it's our broader efforts to promote energy efficiency as we move forward with the HFC phase down. So we have, to be honest with you, we only saw this a few minutes ago on the portal, so these are some very preliminary reflections, but listen, I do think it's quite helpful. At the last meeting of the Executive Committee, we agreed to a window, $100 million window, focused in particular on the manufacturing sector, which I think to us was really a very promising and helpful outcome to achieve climate benefits beyond those in the Kigali Amendment. So we appreciate the continued focus on this particular issue. I would probably just comment on a couple items. So having agreed that window that focuses on the manufacturing sector, our recollection is that there will be further discussion at the next meeting of the Executive Committee on at least two areas. The first was on the possibility of a revolving fund, which potentially relates to end user projects or possibly broader than that. And then secondly, to look at some issues that were non-investment related. And so just to note, I see a few of those issues that are picked up in this proposal. So I think from our perspective, we understand these are important issues. I think we're broadly supportive of advancing the energy efficiency agenda. I would just say, I think we want to just be careful that where we've got sort of an ongoing discussion in the executive committee and additional information that we've requested coming into it, that we make sure that we're continuing our focus there to try to achieve additional progress to build upon the $100 million window, for example, that we just achieved. I would note, very much appreciate the language in 1A, the aspect of talking about developing a robust pipeline of high quality project proposals. I think honestly that is really probably the key to success of really getting some additional climate benefits out of the $100 million window. So very much appreciate Micronesia and Grenada really highlighting that as an important element as a part of this. So listen, again, really thanks to them for highlighting the energy efficiency issue. Not a compliance obligation, as we all know, but it's something that's quite important that we make some efforts to increase energy efficiency as part of the HFC phase down. I haven't had enough time with this to fully reflect on it, but did just want to share a couple of initial reflections, and obviously we'll have more to say at the meeting of the parties after we've had more time to reflect on this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is Kuwait, and if others would like to speak, please push the button. It's Nigeria and others. I see Kuwait, and it's Kuwait, Kuwait, Nigeria, Armenia, and the EU. So in this order, and then I close the list. So Kuwait, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and I would like to thank Grenada and Federal State of Micronesia for submitting this draft decision. And as the distinguished delegate from USA was mentioning, that energy efficiency is something that is very urgent and very substantial to our task when we are phasing down the HFCs, and as the window has been opened, and I think this is a great idea and there's a great potential, but as this is a late notice reaching this CRB, we didn't have the time to go through it verbally and discuss with our colleague about it. We are fully aware that this is something have to be discussed here. But I just want to highlight what has been mentioned previously, that we have also to look to this CRB in a way as we are looking to the guidelines of the 100 million window that we open in the MLF now, so how both of these can work together and to achieve for our colleagues and in Article 5 the success of implementing their HFCs down, phase down with their energy compliance and energy upgrading for their national circumstances. And I just want to say that we are in favor of that CRB, but with a cautious how that will work with the energy efficiency under the MLF. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next one is Nigeria. Please, Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. My delegation supports this CRP. We wish to thank the proponents of this CRP. I will look forward to further discussion of this CRP at the next MOP in Bangkok. Thank you.
Thank you. Armenia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Armenia would like to thank the proponents of this CRP for addressing these very important issues, which is kind of framing some part of the discussion on this matter that took place within the margins of this meeting. And I would like to mention once again what many of delegates have already said about the importance of the energy efficiency and increasing importance of it. And it is becoming important not only for A5 parties and not only for A2 and A5 parties, but the countries with low consumption are of low volume consumption may be of at additional risk, may be facing additional challenges. So hence I would like to commend the proponents of paying specific attention to those parties in the CRP. And of course, my delegation will be ready to keep on the discussion of this CRP within the margins of MOP. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker on my list is the EU. Or Hungary.
Yes, indeed, Mr. President, it's Hungary on behalf of the 27 member states of the European Union. So we are exactly in the same position as everybody here. We just discovered the document a few minutes ago, so it's a bit difficult, of course, to react on the spot. But we are very positive to the initiative, and we also believe that addressing correctly the energy efficiency aspects of the document, of the Kigali implementation project is one of the key issues that we have to take into account. So we would like also to give a positive note and address or express our willingness to engage into discussions about that subject at the MOP. Thank you.
Thank you, Hungary. Then that was the last speaker on my list. I would like to say that we would forward this to the MOP and that we will come back at the MOP and further discuss on it. And then I would like to close agenda item 6B. And then I would like to go to agenda item 12. The proposal from Cuba on additional funding. And I would like to ask Cuba to report back on the consultations in the margins of this meeting and what came out of it. Cuba, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. We really regret that we were not able to engage in unofficial encounters, perhaps because the main delegations that submitted a different statement and had objections were in contact groups and other meetings. The fact is that we were able to reach out to two parties and initiate discussions with the delegate of Canada. Honestly, when we discussed this matter in the room 2 days ago, it was quite clear that the positions are very far apart. I would just like to recall that when we came to the MOP 35, our draft decision sought not to amend the Montreal Protocol, but to find an adjustment and have some flexibility regarding the establishment of the baseline years, because we believe that if there were an increase in our exports, then it wouldn't be a 10% reduction, it would be more. And even so, although we have our draft decision, if we had the support of 7 other parties who have the same problem, we nevertheless need to request a flexibility. At the time we submitted, we didn't know what the forecasts were for consumption for the year 2023. And at the beginning of 24, we did all the calculations and we realized that there was an increase in imports in the pre-pandemic years. And so we would have to have a reduction of a greater percentage, and that would be very hard for us to bear as a small country. So we produced the graph that we showed you and the draft decision. And I think the graph speaks for itself about the kind of problems that we're facing. In making our case 2 days ago, we mentioned control through the quota system, and we believe that the quota system is a good mechanism to control imports of these gases. But this really is a matter that has to be addressed gradually on a phased-in basis. If we had applied the quotas as we normally should have, in accordance with the plan through to 2030, then that would paralyze our country. It would simply paralyze our economy, and we would have to make major investments to change technologies and find alternatives. And that would be no mean feat. It wouldn't be easy. So that's why we are bringing forward this CRP. We would like a funding window which is larger than what was provided for. And we don't want to have to go to the non-compliance committee. We want to be able to continue supporting the process. So I really think there should be a way to manage our consumption and imports and production of HFCs. But we still have to take care of refrigeration. So these are two separate issues. We're open to dialogue so long as we're able to find middle ground between what we proposed and the situation. We are telling you what our situation is in Cuba, but I know that a lot of other parties are probably having the same problem. They're having trouble complying with the Montreal Protocol at this time for these same reasons, because of these challenges before us. It's not just the price of cargo and insurance and access and everything we talked about in the various workshops and side events that were very interesting, and we're very grateful that all those events were hosted, and we're grateful to hear from the other parties about their experiences. But everything suggests that it's not going to be an easy path forward. We need funds. So we really hope the CRP will be brought to the MOP, and we stand ready here or at the MOP to discuss this in a contact group or some forum and try to find solutions that everyone can agree on. We want to address the needs of all parties, not just one. And we hope that other parties will be sensitive to our needs and concerns and understand that we really want to comply with the Montreal Protocol, namely a 10% reduction in HFC through 2030. That is a major concern. That is not to say that we are not taking actions in our country. We are, but gradual measures. We're initiating a process to convert the main importers precisely so that we can find new solutions and new ways of thinking and alternatives, and be able to import equipment that doesn't emit these gases. But it's slow going. We can't do it at the stroke of a pen with a decree or a new quota, because that really would impede the economic development of Cuba. And we're not trying to compare with other countries, but certainly in Cuba it would impact the cold chain and other productive sectors of the economy. And our economy came out so weak after the pandemic. And I think the MOP recognized this at its last meeting in 2023. So we're not closed off to dialogue. We're totally open, but we want to maintain the decision that you see in the CRP, and we would ask that it be considered at the Bangkok meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cuba, on this proposal. I don't know if there are other parties who would like to take the floor. Otherwise, I would like to confer for a moment. I see the US is asking for the floor, so first the US.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So when this came up in plenary previously, this delegation made a pretty substantial intervention. We had understood that the next step was that the proponent was going to reach out to do margins discussions. Further, we had understood that you had just asked for was an update on the follow-up from your proposed path forward in plenary. And it just does not appear to us that that follow-up has actually occurred. And we're being asked now to sort of skip to just passing this CRP on to the MOP. So from our perspective, what we would have preferred is that the ruling that you made in the plenary was the follow-up item, but it appears based on what we just heard that none of that has actually taken place. So just, I don't know what your ruling is, but our preference would not be to move this on to the meeting of the parties, because the follow-through has not taken place that we understood was your own ruling from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, and I see Cuba, you asked for the floor, and then I will come back to what the proposal is. So, Cuba?
Bueno,
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. Really, it was suggested that we have meetings in the margins, but we weren't told with who were we supposed to meet with and discuss this with. We were here in the plenary, and we haven't moved. We've been here the whole time. And we have seen movements among the parties, but a lot of people were in contact groups, and we were standing ready to talk to anyone interested, but the CRP is there, and it was proposed in accordance with the protocol procedures, and I don't see why it should not be referred to the MOP. We believe it should be presented to the MOP, and then at the MOP we could set up a contact group and talk in that group and go into all the details and maybe have more time to come up with the best decision. So perhaps it would be best to deal with this in the MOP. And maybe the decision will be to leave this aside at the MOP and or leave it, bring it to the next committee. But we've been here and ready to talk, so we don't understand the last position that was voiced. And we don't really know who we're supposed to be dealing with in this. There were countries that took the floor to give their view that was different from the sponsor. There are about 5 to 6 parties. So I think we need to understand who our counterparts are. The sponsor just made the proposal, and a group of the parties took a different view, and somebody needed to be a focal point for that group to have side talks. So none of that was clearly determined, and that's one reason we didn't have offline discussions. But I don't think that is any reason to hold back this decision from the MOP. This is a request from one of the parties. We believe it's necessary. We need this funding window. We need to ensure that countries that were badly impacted by COVID have support. Perhaps we can work something out in future conversations at the MOP, and there's bad feedback from the mic. And if we can reach an agreement, we can withdraw the CRP, but that would be in the MOP then. Because under the Montreal Protocol, a party has a right to submit a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's say when we had the plenary, there were several delegations who took the floor, and they also referred to discussions that already have taken place last year, and where decisions have been taken to accommodate several of your concerns, but also from other countries. And the ruling was indeed that you would consult with other parties to see if there was a way forward. And that was the reason there hasn't been established a contact group, but because there was not enough appetite to talk about this subject in a separate contact group or whatever setting. And then it's also up to the country or the party that proposes something to go around and see if they can find support. As I just heard, you were looking for that others come to you. But it's also an obligation for a party to go around actively to find support for this proposal. And I think that's quite important. As I understand, that didn't happen or not enough. And my proposal is this wouldn't go to the MOP, because there's not enough support to discuss that at the MOP. So this would be my ruling on this item. I'm sorry for you, but this is really how we try to move things forward as well. If it happens also with other items, if there's not enough support to go in a contact group or an informal group, then a party should go around and see if there's enough support in the room eventually to come with another proposal or an adjusted proposal, and to try to move forward on that. So I'm sorry, but I think we are not going to put that forward to the MOP. Then I would like to go to agenda item 14, adoption of the report of the meeting, and that's Merosa.
Thank you, Ralph. So moving on to adoption of the meeting report. The report we are about to adopt is contained in documents 46/L1 and L1 Ed1. You'll find these documents in the meeting portal under in-session documents. Document L1, which covers discussions on the first day, which was Monday, is available in all languages, while document L1 Ed1, which covers discussions on the second and third days, is only available in English. As the limited time available to prepare and edit the document did not make translation into the other official languages of the United Nations possible. You will note that some sections are yet to be completed. This is in conformity with our practice to adopt reports of proceedings based on the understanding that the co-chairs, with the assistance of the Secretariat, will be authorized to complete the report after the session, including the sections that are already reflected in the draft report. I'm submitting it for adoption on the understanding that today's proceedings and approved changes will be incorporated in the final report. We will go through the report by agenda items and taking a group of paragraphs for adoption together on each item. I suggest that any participant with minor editorial comments can bring those straight to the Secretariat here at the podium immediately after we finish adopting the report, without necessarily seeking to make an intervention from the floor. However, if there are specific and extensive corrections in any paragraph of the report, then please first request the floor to read out those corrections and thereafter provide the text to the Secretariat for proper reflection in the report of the meeting. We will first take up document L1. Section 1, opening of the meeting. Are there any comments on paragraphs 1 to 7? If there are none, then they are approved. Section 2, organizational matters. Paragraphs 8 to 10 are to be completed. B, adoption of agenda. Any comments on paragraphs 11 and 12? If none, then they are approved. Organization of work, paragraph 13. Any comments? If none, then it is approved. Section 3, presentations by TEEP and the SAP. Under presentations, are there any comments on paragraphs 14 to 16? If none, then they are approved. Questions and answer session. We are looking at paragraphs 17 to 27. If none, then they are approved. And then move into discussions. First, very short-lived substances concerning paragraphs 28 to 36. Are there any comments? If none, then they are approved. Paragraph 37 under this is to be completed. Paragraphs 38 to 42. Is there any comments? If none, then they are approved. Paragraphs on emissions of carbon tetrachloride. Paragraphs 44 to 47. Any comments? If none, then they are approved. And then we move to section 4, life cycle refrigerant management. Are there any comments to paragraphs 48 to 65? If none, then they are approved. Section 5 on atmospheric monitoring, paragraphs 66 to 68. Are there any comments? If none, then approved. Paragraph 69 is to be completed. The rest of the sections of L1 are to be completed, and now we will turn to document L1, Ed 1. Under section 1, presentations by TEEP and the SAP, feedstock uses of controlled substances, paragraphs 2 to 5. Any comments? Then approved. Section 2, enhancing the global and regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the MP, paragraphs 8 to 25. Any comments to these paragraphs? If none, then they are approved. Section 3. Are there any comments to paragraphs 27 to 49? EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Facilitator. We have a few limited comments on paragraph 47 in relation to PFAS and the ongoing developments in the EU. We have them in writing, so we will provide them to you in writing. But to give a few examples, there was reference to the precautionary principle, but we made the point that that was also part of the beginning of the Vienna Convention, and that's not represented. There is a list of possible exemptions already included in the draft proposal on the discussion in the EU, and the equipment where one refers to includes spray foams, which is not included in the list. At some point, It refers to HCFC, the report, while we think we refer to HFC when we intervened. It refers to phase out while we refer to phase down. There was one or two further small editorial comments, but we will provide them to you in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. EU Secretariat has noted it down, and when you give the correct text, it will be incorporated. And now we turn to nominations for critical use exemptions for methyl bromide for 2025, paragraphs 50 to 54. Australia.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. In paragraph 52, on the 5th line, after the sentence that ends considerable costs for the grower, I'd like to insert a new sentence. I have sent the text to the Secretariat, but it reads, she also indicated in the case of her country, the registration of a methyl iodide mixture by the Registration Authority in December 2023 had enabled its use for soil fumigation for strawberry runners in 2024, and more information on its success would be available later in the year. Then the paragraph would continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretariat has noted it down and it will be incorporated. And now we turn to energy efficiency, paragraphs 56 to 66. Are there any comments? If none, then it's approved, and 67 is to be completed. Under panel membership changes, regarding paragraphs 68 to 69, are there any comments? If none, then it's approved. Under any other issues, paragraph 70. Any comments? Approved. Section 4, climate-friendly alternatives for metered-dose inhalers, paragraphs 71 to 81. Are there any comments? If none, then they are approved. And 82 is to be completed. Section 5, paragraphs 83 to 86. Are there any comments? If none, then approved. Section 6, paragraphs 88 to 106. If none, then it is approved. 107 is to be completed. Section 7, strengthening MP institutions. Are there any comments on paragraphs 108 to 114? If none, then it's approved. 115 is to be completed. Section 8, paragraphs 116 to 122. If no comments, then it's approved. Paragraph 123 is to be completed. Section 9, proposal by Cuba. Are there any comments on paragraphs 124 to 132? If none, then it's approved. Paragraph 133 is to be completed. Under unwanted import of energy inefficient products and equipment, paragraphs 134 to 138. Are there any comments? If there are none, then it's approved. Paragraph 139 is to be completed. Section on adoption of the report of the meeting is also to be completed. Paragraph 141, closure of the meeting, was also to be completed. We have come to the end of approving the meeting report as contained in documents 46/L1 and 46/L1 Ed1. And with this, I will hand over to my co-chair for closure of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Miruza. Here we are at the closing of the meeting. On behalf of my co-chair, Miruza Mohammed, I would like to make some remarks. It was a good, full, and fruitful meeting. A lot of progress has been achieved. I would like to thank all co-conveners for their active role in achieving this. And of course, everybody here in this room. There's much understanding among parties on there's much more understanding among all parties on the different issues. And it puts us in a good position for the important decisions to be taken at the next COP-MOP. There are some decisions we only can make every 3 years, and we should not lose that momentum. It's also important to use the time between now and the COP-MOP to keep in touch and think and work on solutions that will be beneficial for everyone. And of course, relax a little bit for the summer holidays. I would like to say thank you, and as we are in Canada, also merci beaucoup to all the people who assisted us in the meeting, translator, technicians, and last but not least, the Ozone Secretariat. Au revoir, goodbye, until Bangkok. Thank you. I see I have 2 speakers on the list. Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, for the floor. I want to say some words. First of all, we would like to thank the Canadian authorities for the opportunity to host this meeting and for the warm welcome. We thank the Secretariat for the excellent preparation. We would like to thank our colleagues whose active participation made the meeting rich and productive. Now we would like to draw your attention to the following. At a time when we are cooperation, for the sake of life on the planet, Russia had committed yet another brutal act of terror against Ukraine. by launching a large-scale missile attack on peaceful cities, killing civilians, killing children. In the morning of the 8th of July, Russian forces fired 40 missiles of different types at Ukraine. The massive missile attack affected Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, the cities of Dnipro, Kryvyi Rih, Slavyansk, and Kramatorsk. More than 100 civil objects were damaged. The missiles were aimed at residential areas and medical centers. The strikes caused serious damage to Ukrainian largest children's hospital, Ahmadit. This is a hospital where oncological diseases are treated. Bone marrow transplantation and cardiological operation are performed on children. Patients and staff were affected. The blow was dealt to the striked children. This is a crime for which there is no justification. And no matter what the Russian leaders say today, there is indisputable evidence of the direct hit by the Russian missile on the Ahmadid Children's Hospital. In Kiev alone, 33 people were killed as a result of the Russian attack that took place on this day. These are ordinary people, civilians. These are children. During its brutal war of aggression, Russia has shown complete disregard for human life and must be held accountable for the war crimes committed and for the blatant violations of international law. Thank you for your attention.
I have United Arab Emirates on my list. I think that was a mistake. And then I have the United States on my list.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I'm making this statement on behalf of Australia, Canada, Israel, Japan, Norway, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. We condemn Russia's war against Ukraine. The toll this aggression is taking on Ukraine's people, environment, and infrastructure is catastrophic and must end. The international community must act resolutely and in solidarity with Ukraine. We will continue to stand with the people of Ukraine. Thank you, Co-Chair.
Russian Federation.
Mr. Chairman, first and foremost, we wish to note the following. The two statements that have just been voiced have nothing to do with the agenda for this session. And we believe that these statements should have been stopped by the organizers. But since they were voiced, I cannot but take the floor in exercising my right of reply. I must note that we have been observing with great regret that a number of countries, including Ukraine, have been attempting to politicize the international environmental protection process. We call on the parties to refrain from biased assessments of the situation in Ukraine. The conflict did not begin in February 2022, but began 10 years ago, and it was not Russia which started this conflict. The reasons for the special operation in Ukraine are well known. They were repeatedly voiced by the Russian representative at specialized platforms, including at the United Nations Security Council, where just a few days ago the question was addressed about the alleged Russian missile strikes, including those allegedly targeting hospitals in Ukraine. The facts bear out the fact this was not a Russian missile. This was a Ukrainian anti-air defense system. The barbaric civil war, which was unleashed by Kiev against its own population, the economic blockade of the southeast of the country, and Ukraine's sabotage of the Minsk agreements, which were approved by the UN Security Council. These are the reasons for the events which are currently unfolding. We wish to remind participants of this meeting of the following. The special military operation of the Russian armed forces on the territory of Ukraine is being carried out in accordance with the provisions of the United Nations Charter and in accordance with international, including humanitarian law. The actions of the Russian armed forces are not targeting civilian populations. The high-precision weapon strikes are targeting infrastructure objects, which are being used for the purposes of providing military equipment and training to Ukrainian armed forces. According to the data of official reports of the UN Environment Program, Donbass was in a state of environmental ecological catastrophe, and this was a consequence of the deliberate destruction of industrial facilities, the flooding of mines, and what the Kiev authorities carried out. I refer to the economic blockade, which they are using to target their own population for many long years. The aggression against their own population is something which caused more than 12,000 people to suffer as a result of this, including children, as a result of strikes and bombardments targeting educational institutions, schools, markets, as well as residential areas where the civilians of those regions reside. I now turn to the statement delivered by the U.S. representative. In this regard, we wish to note the following. The main reason for the persistent conflict has to do with the fact that weapons are being provided to the Kiev regime. If the United States and their allies wish to stop this war, then it would have been stopped already. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
The EU has the floor. EU, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The EU is forced to take the floor. The EU and its member states reiterate their full solidarity with Ukraine and the Ukrainian people and strongly condemn Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war against Ukraine, which violates international law, including the Charter of the United Nations, and has had a devastating effect on human lives and the environment. Multilateral cooperation based on mutual respect is crucial to address huge environmental challenges. the huge environmental challenges we are addressing under this protocol that knows no borders. It is evidence that our collective efforts also under this protocol are indispensable and more urgent than ever. Thank you very much.
I don't have it. Russian Federation.
Mr. Chairman, it is with regret that once again we have to note that you have allowed a statement to be delivered, a statement that has nothing to do with the theme or the topic of today's session, that is protection of the environment. In response to the statement delivered by the EU, I wish to note that it is indeed the European Union, Germany, France, which stepped forward as guarantors of the Minsk agreements and guarantors for the peaceful transfer of power in February 2014 in Ukraine. Unfortunately, in their promise, they have failed to meet their promises, and this resulted in the brutal coup in Kiev in February 2014, and as a consequence, the establishment of the neo-Nazi regime in that country. As a result, the Minsk agreements were torpedoed, and as was stated by the representatives of both France and Germany later, from the very beginning, they adopted the Minsk agreement solely to provide the Ukrainian clique, the junta, an opportunity to prepare for the conduct of war, to wage war against its own population. What happened since 2014? and this has been continuing to occur up until the present day. European countries have been providing lethal weaponry to Kiev and the Kiev regime. And this weaponry is being actively used by the Kiev regime inter alia for the to murder civilians, targeting infrastructure, civilian objects, and environmental objects as well. And these weapons, once again, these weapons have insignia. These were tanks that already entered Russia, Ukraine in the past, and these were insignia from fascist Germany is seen on those tanks and other equipment. The Russian Federation will not allow for the spread of neo-Nazi ideology and ideas on the territory of Europe. And once again, we wish to note that if European countries wish to put an end to this conflict and put an end to weapons deliveries to the Kiev regime, the war would, again, have long been over. Thank you.
There are no other speakers on the list, and I close the meeting.